Thanks for stopping by at Twisted Art Designs. Today I just wanted to talk a little bit about the tools I like to use most for when I'm drawing faces in my art journal. And then I'll give you some tips and tricks and show you how I use them. So to get started, the things that I like to use the most obviously would be a mechanical pencil. And my two favorites are this one by Tombow. It is the monograph. If you turn the little end and twist it, the eraser goes up and down and it has eraser refills. And then to extend the pencil, you press on this and you get a longer lead. And then the other one is a Graph Gear 500. I have them in different sizes and I really like the weight of them and the feel of them. My favorite eraser is the Tombow's Mono Zero. It's very tiny, skinny, so it gets into little fine details when you're erasing. You can even do pencil drawing and shade it, and if you're doing things like hair, you can go back in and you can erase little fine highlights and lines with this, little highlights and drawing eyes and things. And these two things are, they are Architect's line pointers. So they are architect tools, but I use them all the time for drawing faces, and I'll show you how. And then I use, from time to time, I use a circle template. This one is just by Picket, small circles. So it goes from a 1 1/8 to all the way really tiny 1/4 of an inch. So this helps you for drawing things like the iris of the eyes and making them uniform if that's something that's really important to you and you're having trouble sketching it by hand. You know, a lot of people have arthritis and problems with stability in their hands and wrists, and so trying to draw an exact perfect circle to do 2 eyes is difficult and they may not come out right, but this is just a real simple thing to use, and I'll show you how I use that. And this is nothing special. This is just a sketchbook that I'm going to play in today just to show you some tips and tricks. So when I'm doing a face, the first thing I like to do, which everybody does, there's a million videos on YouTube and you're going to see this over and over and over again. It's in every drawing book that you can get from the library on how to draw people. It's in a gazillion YouTube videos, so this is nothing new or exciting, but everybody does it and it definitely makes a difference. So you're going to want to draw your shape of your face. And you can do that 2 ways. You can do a circle at the top. You can go up here and draw, let me zoom in a little bit here, and draw a round circle and then connect and add the jawline at the bottom. So let's do that just as an example. So you come up to your page and you do a circle. And I'm drawing this kind of at a weird angle to try to be on camera, so it's not going to be perfection. So there's your circle, and then down from that circle you're going to want to draw the jawline. So you're going to come in and drop down a little bit and go in, and then that you're going to make your little chin. So that's one way of getting a face head shape like that. Okay, and then you want to do, just like you see everybody do, and I'm trying to do it light so we can erase it, you do your line down the center, and ignore this now. Let's erase that so that it doesn't confuse us. Once you get this on, you can erase that circle. So now you've got your face shape. Okay, so you draw a line down the center, and then approximate center as best as you can get it, a center line in the face, and then a line between these 2 points. That's going to be your nose, and a line between these 2 places is going to be your mouth. Okay, so everybody has seen that. So what I like to do then for the neck, I see a lot of people and they do their neck starting right here at the chin and they make these little skinny necks like this. it's preference. There isn't a right or wrong, and I'm not saying one person does it right and one person does it wrong. There are a lot of stylized, and if you're doing whimsical, you can do long skinny necks or short fat necks. But if you're trying to do kind of a proportional face, the neckline actually, and you know what, the best video for that part of it, Dina Wakely has a great video on how she draws faces, and she explains about the neck, that you don't want to go too skinny, and she's correct. I've even gone back and looked at some of my old artwork, and my necks are too skinny. So you see how that looks very proportional, because you're almost to the outside, you're just coming in just slightly to do your neck, okay? So then, the next thing I like to do is the eyes. Everybody likes to do the eyes next. And you want your eyes to be the same width. If you're right-handed, a lot of people tend to draw this eye on this side too high. If you're left-handed, you tend to draw this eye too high. So if you don't have your guidelines in here and you're just throwing out a sketch, because I don't do a lot of guidelines anymore on all my drawings. I just come in and just start sketching. And sometimes I start with the nose. I do a simple nose. And then I build my face out from there. I know that right here is going to be approximately the corner of the eyes, and so I just start building out a face. And I don't concentrate so much on those perfection lines. I just start drawing. Okay, but if you're going to use this as your guide and your reference, then you're going to use this line so that you keep your eyes balanced, so one won't be higher than the other. And eyes, if you're doing whimsical, you can do them really far apart. You can do them closer together. You can do, Tamara Lepore teaches for hers, she does ovals, and she does exactly 3 perfect oval shapes to get her eyes on the face. So the space in the middle is the same distance as the length of the eyes. So it's like 3 ovals exactly the same touching each other, and then that gives her the nose space and the perfect distance of the eyes. But as faces are different, all people look different. Use magazine references and references online to look at people. Start looking at tons and tons of pictures of people. People all look different. Some people have little noses, big noses, small eyes, close set eyes, far eyes. So there's no right or wrong for anybody, but for whimsical, you can do any way you want. So what I like to do is I like to start and I like to draw that first eye. I leave a little space right here, and I just start to pencil in my shape of the eye. And then that's going to give, once I get it and I like it, then I know what this eye needs to look like. So that's where my pointer comes in play. So this pointer, what you want to do is you want to spread out these points, and you want to use those points to measure the exact distance. So if you wanted to do where you have that space the same distance as the length of the eye, then you would make a dot. Then you move it over and you make a dot. Now you know exactly how big you need to make this eye so that it matches this eye. Does that make sense? It helps you get the eyes lined up in the same size. So there you go. See how they're looking pretty good, pretty close. Now this one seems a little bit higher than that one. That's also where using this comes into play. This is pretty nifty. You can take a circle, a little circle stencil like this, and you can go, you want to find what size you want your eyeball to be. So in fact, let's erase these and I'll show you a different way of doing it. Okay, so we're going to start again. So if you don't want to freehand draw them in and you don't think they're going to be straight or right, you can use the circle template and you can decide what size you want your eyes to be. And you don't want them to be, you don't want to use a circle that's too big. You want to use a circle that's just slightly smaller than you want it to be. And see how they have a line? Well, then you can line that up right on your line How perfect is that? So you put your circle in, you draw it lightly, and then you can decide if you want to measure it out, you can, but I'm going to go over here because I'm just going to make this without measuring. So you go over here and you line up those lines again with your baseline that you did, your center line, and you make that second circle. Okay, so now you have 2 circles. So if you come down and you just add in the corners with a little point, you have that. Then you can come across, because this is actually like the orbit of the eye. So now you can come across and you can do an upper eyelid. And you can just pencil that upper eyelid in. See how easy that is? And now if you take your eraser and you erase that circle line up at the top from the top, because that orbit is up top. You know, you could have actually I could have left it. That's all right. And then I'm going to erase this corner part of the circle, because basically you drew that circle in just to get your eye shape. So you've got your eye shape like that. Okay, and now you can come back in. I could have left that top. If I left the top part of the circle, so that's the other thing that it does, I just marked it again, is it gives you the exact reference for where you want that eyelid to be. Because sometimes it's hard to even get your eyelids even. And if something's off, it makes your drawing off. So now you can come in and sketch in those eyelids like that. And now for the pupil. Okay, so you can use your circles again to put your pupils in the eye. You can make small ones and not have it come all the way down and touch the bottom. You can have the eye be all the way. It's up to you. That's a stylized eye, and that's a whole nother video. But if you want them to be even, find a circle that's about the size that you would draw it if you were going to sketch it in by hand. You just kind of look around and find that circle that seems to look like what you would sketch. And you can line up these lines, bink, bink. That's sound effects, bink, bink. And now you just draw it in. And see, there I've got my circle. So I use the same size circle. Come over here, line up the lines again with your line you made on your face, and draw it in. It's just a reference point. It's a reference. And this is going to be a whimsical looking face. So it's just a reference. You can draw this bottom eyelid in a little bit like this and make them look a little sad and pouty. And then you can come in. You can use this even for the pupil. If you're worried about your pupils being the same, use this the same way. Line up that line. Find a circle you like and use that to draw in your pupil. There. Kind of looks like a deer in headlights, but that's all right. That's all right. For the sake of practice, that's quite all right. Because you can always come back and adjust. These are just guidelines. They're guidelines to help you get it in there, get it on the paper, and then you can play around with it and make it look any way you want it to look. Make it look sad, whimsical, happy. Look at expressions online for references. You know, go online and Google face expressions, and you can find all different kinds of reference pictures. So now you want to draw that little corner of the eye, a little soft corner. So you can just come in here and play around and define this out. And then when you ink it, you can either ink it to draw. Some people don't do that. They do it all in color. I like to ink mine, but it's preference. Anyway, when you ink it, it just, your lines are just there. It's right there for you, and your eyes are even. Look how even they are, and your circles are even. So with the pointer, same thing. I mean, you can come in here and test it out and see, did I make them exactly the same by doing your points and your points. Yep, this one's actually a little tiny bit bigger, and then you could close it down a little bit to make it smaller to match. That's what I use this for a lot. And then for things like the nose, like here's your line in the middle. I'm going to come down, I'm going to make a nose. The nose, the nostrils of the nose should line up about with the corners of the eyes. So if you just put a little, I'm putting this line in here, but it's not going to stay. It's just a guideline. So there's about really what your nose on your face should be for width. So if you come down here and you make your nostrils first, make some nostrils. That kind of gives you, for me, that gives me a nice place to start. Because then I can come back in and I can draw that bottom part of the nose. It's like a very short, wide U with a little curlicue at the top. That's how I'm making that nose. And then I've got my little nostrils. And so these lines aren't going to stay. These were just to give me a reference of how wide I should make that nose. So now when I erase all that, the line down the center of the face, the line across this way, center, and you take those out. There's my little nose. And you can change the shape, like if you don't want it so dipped, you can make it a little less dipped. This is where you play around with the character of your drawing. And the top of the nose is going to be rounded like this, but you can do that with your shading if you want it to be like a little buttony nose. And then for the mouth, I like to just come in and where that line is, do a little dip like that. And then come in here with the bottom lip. And then do a little dip up here. And then make your top lip. And then you're going to connect up here and make like this little teardrop shape. And there you go. So that makes just kind of a cute mouth. And then I erase this line. That was your guide reference line. And there's my mouth. For ears, ears start at the base of the nose. So the bottom of the ear, you come straight across, and that's going to be where the ears start. And then up at the top, it's about the center of the eye. So if you do your ears there, center of the eye to the bottom of the nose, they're going to be pretty right proportionally. But you can always change it up. You can do elf ears and raise them up higher and make them bigger. This is just to show you a basic face drawing. She's got pretty big eyes, but that's okay. It's still cute. So now you've got your top of the head. You can come in and draw some hair. Coming across, coming down, do whatever you want to do. Hair is going to be higher than this circle. This is the top of the head, and hair is always above it. So if you try to do your hair and make it right here, it's going to make it off proportionally. Your hair needs to be up higher than that line. Okay, so see that? And then when you erase the line, the top of the headline that you had drawn from your circle, and that line straight down as your reference. See how she looks pretty darn proportioned. Okay. So there is what I would do for a face. And then, like I said, I like to ink. You don't have to ink your drawings. You can just start painting them, coloring them. I put them in a sketchbook, sometimes thinner than what I normally like to work in. If I'm going to transfer it over to an art journal, I can trim around it and Mod Podge it or matte gel medium it down on my page, or I do it on good watercolor paper. If I'm going to put this into the book and then color it, I'll put it in the book with some matte gel medium, and that way I can come back in and color over it. I can do some acrylic paint over it, and then my colored pencils or my Neocolor 2. She's kind of cute. So that's what I would do. I do it on thin paper if I'm going to transfer it over, and if I'm going to do it in my art journal, then I usually use a Strathmore 400 series watercolor book and watercolor sketchbook, and then I would just go ahead and start away coloring and playing with this drawing. But she's cute. Turned out cute. Kind of fun. Hope this gives you some ideas on how to do that for some drawing tips. And like I said, this line pointer, these line pointers, this one comes out like this, and this one comes across like this, and it has a double end because you can use it for enlarging things. I'm not saying that right, but say you have a picture of a small dog. If you do eye to eye on the dog and you want to make it bigger on a piece of paper, whatever it is here on the original, now you know up here how it can be for how many times, and it says on here you move this back and forth for how much bigger, how many times larger you're trying to enlarge a sketch. So that's what this one is for, and then this one is just a plain pointer. And these, like I said, were my grandfather's, and he did technical drawings all his life, and I inherited them when he passed away. And you can find them sometimes on eBay if you look up architect tools. Derwent makes one for artists, and it is, I'm sorry Derwent, but it's terrible. It's made of wood. Every single one I've seen or tried to purchase to buy were warped. They do warp because they are wood. The points on them are very big and fat, so you can't really, these are tiny, like point, and they are really big points, so you're not getting a very accurate line pointer. So I personally think if you're gonna try this method out, then look on eBay for somebody who's getting rid of some old architect tools. The other thing I didn't put in here is eyebrows, and you can use this as well. Eyebrows, you want to come from the corner of the eye. She doesn't have eyebrows, I just realized that. You want to come from the corner of the eye and go straight up, and that's where you're going to start your eyebrow. And so then you know over here, if you want to do it straight across, and come straight across and do the same thing and add in the eyebrows. There. That's what she needed. And you can, of course, do eyebrows rounded, arched, any way you want to do them. If you don't have one of these or you don't want to buy one of these, you can also use a ruler. So if you have a ruler, even on the edge of this has a ruler. I think it's in metric, though. Yeah, it is, but it doesn't really matter. If you do the same thing, you have your baseline in, and so say you go right here and you measure so you can see that it's to this line, then you can do the same thing. You can move this over to where that starts, and you can know that's where I want the next one to start, and then this is where I want this one to start, and use this measuring tool as your tool for, is it accurate? And see, when I put it down, it's exactly the right size. So you can just use a ruler for that as well. But measuring really helps for making them even and making them accurate. Just going over it in pen just to show you what it looks like. And this is where you can move that eyelid down a little bit if you want to, and do a little bit of stylizing and playing around with it. I'm doing some little tiny adjustments, but for getting your circles in there in place and My hand is kind of shaky. I'm at such a weird angle to be on camera that I can't do this straight because I'm not balancing my hand like I normally would. I kind of go heavy on the eye up above and then do the eyelashes. Just do a couple down here. I don't go crazy with a lot of eyelashes. I only put a couple in the corners here on top. I do them heavier out here. Couple on top, and then down here I just do a couple. I never really take them all the way into the corner of the eye. That's just my preference. And you know what? As you start to draw lots and lots and lots of faces, you're going to find what your style is. This style may not even be your style. I'm hoping that it just is my techniques and how I achieve what I'm going for maybe will resonate with you and help you to get your basic faces down on paper and do some drawings. But your style shouldn't look like mine. You're not going for that. Everybody's needs to practice and play around and find your own style, because your art should be your art. You don't want to emulate mine. You can use it as a reference, but make it different. Figure out different hair, or do the eyes differently, make them more sad. So take mine and make it your own. And this is just for reference, and some people might give me a thumbs down and say, oh, I don't like your way of doing it, but look how cute she is. Does have quite big eyes, but when they're colored in, I think she'd be really cute. In fact, I'm going to use her in a journal. But there you go. So hopefully that gave you some ideas for how to get the proportions, how to get a nose in there, how to make your eyes equal and make your circles equal and your pupils equal, how to get the lips in the right place, make sure you're making your necks wide enough, putting your ears in the proper position, and then, hey, it's up to you. Go crazy, make some wild crazy hair and change the color of the eyes and play around with it and make it your own. So I hope that helped. Hope you liked my little tips and tricks of the tools that I use. A circle template, some architect pointers, Tombow Mono drawing pen is my favorite drawing pen because you can use any medium over it. Watercolors, neocolors with a water brush, and it will not smear. It's awesome stuff. And then the types of pencils and eraser that I use. So those are my go-to tools. I have a little drawing pouch that I keep them in, and then sketchbooks. And you know what? You can never make enough faces. I just sit in front of the TV in the evening in my recliner with my feet up, and I sketch faces of all different kinds. Then you can start to practice 3/4 view and looking up and all those different styles. There's a million different styles. So watch as many YouTube videos as possible. There are so many artists out there, and they do have different takes. I've seen some artists that like to do little tiny, super skinny, pointy little noses, and that's all they do. And some do just skinny necks, and some do little tiny eyes, and you make the eyes farther out. It is preference. There is no right or wrong, but the more people you watch, the more tips and tricks you pick up, the more you're going to find your own style. When you're adding your color in, I'm just kind of playing around with this a little bit. When I go in to do my pupils of my eyes, I like to leave that little white spot, but you can also come back in with a paint pen and put it in later. So I kind of do my little, I fill them in, but I leave a little spot off to the side. So this is a time too where if something looks off to you, take a photograph of it with your cell phone or your iPad and look at the photograph, because when you're looking at it in person, it may look right, but you can't quite figure out what it is that's off. Like for me, I can tell that I've got a little bit more white on this side than I do over here underneath. And it doesn't have to be perfect. That's the thing too. You know what? These are faces in our art journals. Unless it's a portrait or it's something that you're going to sell and you want it to be absolutely perfect, I don't go for for perfection because it's in my art journal. It's just something cute and pretty, and I'm going to layer over it and collage over it and put flowers on top of her hair and add all kinds of things. So I don't get too hung up in those kind of details. But this is the time before you ink it that if you take a photograph of it and you look at it on your phone or your iPad, you're going to see, oh, one eye is higher than the other, and you can change it while it's still in pencil. If you've inked it like I have, I can come back in, and this is something else. You can come back in and you can cover up some little problems and things by going over it. Like I'm going over that top line and making it darker, and I'm using a paint pen. But I can kind of make some adjustments. So if one is a little bit higher than the other, this is a great time to even them up a little bit. So you can start to even it up just by playing around with it. And this is just, I'm not going perfect on this. I'm doing this for the video. It's just playing, and I'm at an odd angle, so I'm really not doing it as nicely as I normally would. But so you can do that. And another tip about the eyes, once you get your eyes colored in and done the way you want them, I like to come back in. Let me show you a really cool tip. Okay, so I'm working on the eyes. I did them a little bit blue and green. You know, it's a character. I like to go up at the top, and I'm using a colored pencil now, and I make it darker up at the top of the eye. So right over my pen, my color that I used, which was just Arteza brush pen, I was just playing around. Look at the difference in those two when I make the top darker. So if you go up here by the eyelid and you make it a little bit darker, and then just start to blend it out. Look at the difference in those eyes. It made them really come to life. Then I like to take a gray, in a very light gray, and right underneath that eyelid, on the top only, I'm going to come across the white part and just slightly into the iris, and I'm going to make it a gray, little gray cast. I do that in all my eyes. And see how that just makes them look a little bit more defined, a little bit more realistic. Not really. I mean, this is a cartoon character drawing, but look at how much better that looks. Making it darker up here, and then adding in that little gray shadow. It's like a little cast shadow that the upper eyelid is making on the eye. And you can come around the edge of the iris a little bit with your color. Just play around with it and look at, the more you play, the better it gets. And you can take your Tombow Mono and you can come in and really lightly draw those little lines that we all have in our eyes. I'm just kind of scratching them and sketching them in really lightly. See that? So those are just some little tips and tricks. And for coloring in, you always want to have a light source. On this one, I'm having my light coming from this way. So see how this part of her hair is lighter and this part is darker. So the sun is shining down this way. Well, it's going to hit this bridge of this nose, and this side of the face is going to be more shadowed. So you pick which side is in shadow and which side isn't. And so that's when you start putting in your little shadows. So it's going to be darker on this side of the nose. I'm it's always darker underneath the nose. So I always take my color and add some color underneath that nose and give it some shape. And then it's darker in this spot right here, your little teardrop spot underneath. And it's darker in this ear because this ear is all in shadow. So once you establish where your light source is, it makes it so much easier for how to shade and color this face. It's going to be shaded underneath her neck. I'm just taking a Neo color in Flesh, and yes, that's the name of the color, and no, I did not name it. It was named by Karen Dosh. I get that question all the time. They think that I've had people even say that I'm being racist because I call it Flesh, and every person has flesh, but our flesh tones are different. Karen Dosh named this one, and it's 7500-042, and the color name is Flesh. So I'm just telling you what color I'm using. So there, you've got shadow on this side, because if the sun is coming from this way, it's going to be more darker underneath here, on this side of the neck, on this side of the face, on this side of the nose. You're going to need a little shadow under that hairline. And you still need some contrast and shadows over here, obviously, for shape, because these parts dip in, so. But not as much as on the other side. So it's just getting started, just playing with it. I just wanted to show you that tip about coloring in the top part of the eye and then putting in that little gray spot. So thanks for stopping by, and I hope you enjoyed this and it maybe gave you some ideas for drawing faces in your art journal. So have fun. Art soothes the heart.